Hey, everybody. Welcome to another Sunday morning conversation. Today I'm going to be talking with Stu Hacker. This guy swam the English Channel. It's the holy grail of marathon swimming. Uh, so, you know, please do watch, and I hope you enjoy this as much as I did.
I've just managed to get back in time for this. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for making it. I appreciate it.
Well, it's a pleasure. It's nice to meet you.
So, man, tell me about the English Channel. I haven't done anything swim that long. I think 4.5 miles is the longest I did, and I was incredibly bored.
That's a warm-up swim, right?
Man, you know what? It wasn't just a warm-up swim. It was downstream. It was in a river. So I had a little bit of a boost.
Yeah, so I guess your question is a fairly broad one. The English Channel, it's one of those swims, isn't it? People put it up on this kind of pedestal as being almost the Everest of marathon swimming. And I think that's because so long ago it was the first swim. And it presents unique challenges. It's cold. It's a really busy shipping lane. Yeah, it's just one of those that if you're a marathon swimmer, you want to put on your list. Yeah, proud to have done it.
So, I mean, what was your preparation for it? I mean, you know, cold showers, stuff like that. I mean, I'm going to start eventually doing X-Tries, and that shit's freezing, like in Norwegian fjords and stuff like that. So, I mean, I don't know, I think I once knew a guy who's like, yeah, I actually had to put on weight for this to kind of insulate myself a little bit more.
Yeah, that's a kind of commonly held belief. So if you break down the variables that kind of matter in the English Channel, the first one is the cold. So be smart. First of all, when are you going to book it? The season runs from June until September. And the sea temperature is going to vary quite a lot during that period. In June, it's still pretty cold. It's maybe, if you're lucky, it's kind of 14, 15. But as you go through the season, it'll be up 16, 17, which is still cold if you're in there for a long time. But if you put on lots of weight to cope with the cold, using that whole, have you ever seen a skinny whale myth? Then you'll also slow down. So you're going to be in there longer, most likely. It's all about acclimatizing, and acclimatizing to the cold was a really big part of preparing for that swim. Start early in the season, when it's single digits in temperature, just a pair of Speedos, build up slowly how long you're in the water, and your body starts to adapt. And then fingers crossed, by the time you get to your swim, feels like a warm bath.
Okay. Yeah, I get that. I mean, I live in Atlanta, Georgia, so it's always hot. I mean, by the time I forget where you're on a metric system, so I don't actually know my conversions. Yeah, it's like bath water around here once May hits. It only gets hotter, and so there's not much cold water options other than like we have Georgia Tech's Olympic pool, and they keep that at 76 or 77. Other than that, it's just take your cold shower.
Yeah, I don't really buy into the whole cold shower thing. Have you done that? The whole cold showers? It's hard. It's actually harder than being in the water, I think.
Yeah,
I think it's probably good mentally. I don't think it really helps you to adapt, though.
I mean, it's just I mean, once the water hits, I feel it's cold, and then after that, it's just kind of go numb to it.
Yeah, that's a good turn of phrase, to go numb.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really, after that, like, initial shock factor, I kind of forget it's freezing cold. I was told, like, Alaska, man, the water is so cold, it feels like thousands of needles are stabbing you in the face, and you have a wetsuit covering most of your body.
Yeah, I did in preparation for the channel, I went on a kind of cold water endurance camp in Ireland. It's actually run by an American guy called Ned Dennison, who is a fascinating character to meet. And I went to Ireland because it's in the Cork area of Ireland. It's really cold. So even in the summer, when I was there, it was like 11 degrees in the water. It's cold. And again, you do it so that you're every day in the cold water, every day building up that tolerance and that time in the water. Yeah, it was a fantastic camp actually to go on.
Yeah, so I actually drank a lot for a long time until I actually got sober. And so for most of the time, I was either a little half in the bag, still kind of drunk, or hungover when I did most of my races. So the cold water kind of woke me up a little bit.
Yeah,
But it's
you
like,
get cold quickly if you're suffering from a hangover. I've been there and done that.
yeah, it's not like a miserable experience, but it's like the water wakes you up at that point. And like I am sober now.
Yeah, it does do that.
So how long is the channel swim? I don't actually know the distance.
Yeah, it's another good question. So if you could swim point to point and there were no tides and currents and all the other stuff involved, then the closest bit of France. So I'm just going to shut that window because I can hear kids outside coming home from school. It's the back from school crowd outside the window all running past. If you could swim point to point, it's 21 miles from Dover to Cap Grinet, which is a bit of France that kind of sticks out. You can't swim direct because of the currents taking you north and south as you swim. So it's one of those questions. You end up covering a really big distance, like 50 kilometers or something, but
wow,
arguably you're not swimming 50 kilometers because the current's moving you. It's a bit like your river swim. You know, it's the same distance regardless of whether you swam up or downstream. So it's somewhere between 21 and say 24 miles, I would say, depending where you end up landing in France.
What are your weekly workouts like? What kind of yardage are you putting in per session, per week?
So over the winter, I did a lot of pool swimming, working on technique and endurance. As soon as the temperatures in the water started to get into those kind of single digits, I'd be adding in acclimatizing swims in open water. Once the temperature comes up a bit more, I live right in the middle of the UK, so the sea is a long way whichever way I go. So my weekend routine was wake up at say 4 or 5 in the morning, drive to Dover on the south coast or Bournemouth. I'd do 6-hour swims, building up to kind of back-to-back 6-hour swims. So you'd swim 6 hours on the Saturday, go to sleep, get up, do it again.
Do you have a guide, or do you bring a kayaker, something like that, or is it just you?
So a bit of both, actually. So my part of my kind of channel swim and journey was all about me and my dad. So my dad would kayak with me in Bournemouth, for example, which was great. It was a really good experience to share that with him. But there are kind of, as you can imagine, there's groups and big kind of English Channel training groups down at Dover. So you can go along and meet a whole bunch of people that are equally as crazy and swim with them. So yeah, a bit of both. You have to spend some time on your own, because I would say the biggest challenge of swimming something like the English Channel is the mental side of it. It's 80% upstairs in your head. It's lonely. You can be swimming at night. So you need, I think for me, I'd say that was the toughest thing, is that I'm a very social animal. I want to be around people all the time. So if I'm going to be face down in the sea for anywhere over 10 hours, then I need to find ways to calm my brain down, if anything. So you need to do a lot of long, lonely swims in training to be ready for the mental side of the challenge, I think.
Now, is this an organized thing, or can you just show up and say, I want to do this today, and you go?
It's become a lot more popular now. So there's 2 organizations that you can swim the channel with. So there's 2 groups. There's the CSA, the Channel Swimming Association, and the CSPF, which is the Channel Swimming and Piloting Federation. Each of those groups have a certain number of pilots, boats that are allowed to escort swimmers across. So as early as you can, you need to book a tide, a slot, with one of those pilots that can take you across. And then you got that horrible nervous wait when the day gets nearer, because it's very easy for a whole week or a whole tide that you've got to be blown out with weather. So it's the waiting game. You know, it's not, I guess, are you triathlon, Ironman, that sort of thing yourself? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess the nice thing about that is you have a fixed day. That's the day my race is happening. I'm tapering for that day. Whereas with the channel, there's so many variables that you need to consider that you can have a long kind of waiting game and nervously watching weather forecasts.
I mean, it's done on a weekend, right?
It could be any day. So what happens
So
is
I mean,
you
how do you?
book a,
I mean, I don't know how your system works with your job, because like our employers suck here, where you don't get shit for vacation time, and you
yeah,
kind of can't just go and go and come and go as you please on whims. Like, it's actually very structured, and they kind of discourage you taking it. And what you're describing seems like, no, if I gotta go today, I gotta go today. I just take the day off. It's not really feasible for us.
it's
So
kind of like that. So when you book your slot, it will be done. It will be a specific week within that tide. The pilots will generally put 4 swimmers in that 1 week period. You might be slot 1, slot 2, slot 3, or slot 4. If you're slot 1, happy days, you get the first choice of swimmable days. But quite often swimmers, you don't get to swim in that week that you wanted to. It just, the weather doesn't allow for it. So you might be waiting another month or so for an opportunity.
I think it's the movie Snatch that said, what, bad food, worse weather.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I guess that's part of the appeal of the channel, though, is that it presents, certainly as part of the appeal to me, is it presents variables that you can't control. And I like that. I like it until it bites you anyway. I like that kind of uncontrollable take on what the weather throws at you that day kind of thing. Similar in triathlon, right? In Ironman, you never know what that day is going to look like.
Man, I mean, it depends what, like, if you're flying out for a race, you generally don't know to have a really good idea what the weather's going to be like until 48 to 72 hours ahead of time.
Yeah.
You can have an idea, but I mean, so you're kind of trying to, once you get to that window, if you haven't left yet, you can pack yourself the right equipment.
Yeah.
But if you have to leave before you're certain, you have to pack a whole bunch of extra shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if you're flying the races, that's a lot of stuff to bring down, bog down.
You don't have that problem in the channel. 1 swim hat, pair of goggles, 1 pair of Speedos, job done.
Yeah,
no need to pack up a bike.
Complicated sometimes.
Oh, it's some Vaseline as well. Yeah, Vaseline, Speedos, hat, goggles, done.
Where do you keep your passport?
On the boat.
You have to have one?
You do, yeah, yeah. So when you hopefully land in France, you're only actually, I think the rules are you're only allowed to stay there on the beach for like 10 minutes or something. You need to swim back to the boat. You can't get out of the water and go for a pint.
Okay.
Because there's no passport control. Obviously, you land on some random beach.
How do you intake food during that time, or do you not even eat any food during that time?
Yeah, you do. Like feed plans and it's a big consideration. You really need to think hard about your nutrition plan for a swim like that. The answer to your question of how is so it's thrown in. So it's thrown in like you might have a bottle. Like I used UCAN. Have you come across UCAN?
No,
It's
but I get the idea. It is.
Yeah, it's a super starch type of energy powder. So they will throw that in on a string in a bottle. You want to get it down, you hopefully under 1 minute, and then go again. So my feed, I fed after 2 hours and then on the hour for 1 minute until I got there.
Okay.
I did have food and stuff as well, like jelly babies and sweets, but they're really pointless. Once you've been in the sea for 6 hours, you can't taste anything. It's a bit, your treat's no longer a treat.
No, I can get that. And the salt water kind of just sucks your taste buds right out of it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, the feed plan is really important. You don't want to be in cold water swimming without the energy your body needs, definitely.
Oh, man, that's a lot. So, I'm sorry, the last question just slipped my mind. I have a brain injury, so I kind of forget stuff like that.
Was that from an accident or?
Yeah, I was bike commuting to work across
Mhm.
Atlanta, go from one side of town to the other, and a guy in a SUV. He was a distracted driver. He was looking at the navigation on his phone.
Right.
He made a left hand turn, and he hit me right. You know, I didn't do anything wrong.
He literally just turned into you while you were cycling.
Yeah, about 60 kilometers an hour. It was pretty fast.
Wow.
It was very painful.
Yeah, I bet. So how long ago was that?
October 5th, 2017. So it'll be up 3 years soon.
It's a long road to recovery from there.
Yeah, it comes with its own list of complications.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always multiple mental illness problems after that. So you're never battling just one thing. And
Yep.
but COVID hasn't made it particularly easy, especially since I can't swim. I don't have a pool anymore. No longer together with the fiance, and she owned the house, which had the 25-yard pool. So I don't have that anymore. And then
Right.
I don't want to go to gyms down here because we have an idiot running our particular state.
Yeah, we share that. We also have an idiot running our entire country. So
Yeah, one of those too. So
yeah. I'm actually, so my mother's American. I'm half American myself. I spent a lot of time out on the East Coast when I was young.
Okay.
Yeah, around some Maryland area.
Now, were you in like Tidewater, Maryland? Were you over on the coast, or were you in more inland?
Yeah, no, I was. My grandfather lived there for a long time. He had a place right on the Chesapeake Bay, a place called St. Michael's in Maryland, right on the bay. It was lovely. I used to spend my days crabbing and catching those blue crabs and all that sort of good stuff.
Do you know where Cambridge is?
Cambridge, Mass, you mean?
Cambridge, Maryland. Do you remember where that is?
No, I don't actually.
Okay, it's on the part of Maryland that's not like mainland. It's on the Chesapeake Bay, but it's on the unpopulated side.
Okay.
They hold an Ironman there, Ironman Maryland, and the town. It's when I wrote my race report about it, I called it a down and out fishing town that Billy Joel would sing about.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I saw there's a swim there, though, right? I think for nostalgia reasons, one day I want to go back. There's a Bay Bridge swim, right?
Yeah, I think it's like 4 miles long. It's not that long.
Yeah, that would be a fun, nice thing to do, though. I'd like to do that.
I remember reading about it. I just never looked into it any further.
So what's going on with your racing then? Have you got everything cancelled, right?
Well, there's one race that hasn't been canceled yet, but it's on December 5th. So, 3 months from now, I'm probably going to say it's going to get worse than it is now. But, I mean, I don't know. Everything kept getting deferred to the next year.
Yeah.
So I had already written this year off. Like,
Mm-hmm.
This isn't happening. And, they haven't decided that's what they're going to do. I kind of don't want to do it anyway. It's like, I've been doing other things, to occupy my time. I don't want to train right now. So.
Yeah. So I am. Since all the swimming I do, I set up a swim coaching business. I'd been open about a year when this pandemic annoyance happened. So I spend a lot of my time speaking to athletes, and it's a frustrating old time for everybody, with events being cancelled and, like you said, not being able to find pool time. So yeah, it's difficult. It's really difficult.
I haven't swum since March. It's actually really funny because I live through the main river that like a quarter mile down the road from the main river that runs through Atlanta, except for it's very polluted and has E. coli problems every time it rains. So I can't swim in it.
Okay.
It's like, well, that sucks. So
yeah.
Other than that, the pools are highly questionable to go to now. But Atlanta itself, there's like the nearest body of water. Each of them are over an hour away from the city center. Mm-hmm. And it's always like, I don't want to drive that far just to go swim in a lake. Unless you could find a reason to ride out there or do other stuff. It's really a pain in the ass. And
just drive out there and swim, do a 6-hour swim in my honor. That's worthwhile.
You know, it would, but the thing is, like, I've in Lake Alatoona, I've swam by myself before, and even if I
Yeah.
had like a new wave swim buoy,
Yep.
a lot boaters and rednecks, when they're the same type of person, they're very ignorant and careless, so you can easily end up getting run over by one.
Yeah, you shouldn't swim
They
on
don't
your own
they
in
don't
that
exactly
environment.
practice good safety if you haven't seen the Trump parades. So, you know, there's an organized swim out at one of the lakes that this really cranky old asshole does. Everybody hates him, but you know, he does a good deed. But oh yeah, he total asshole to women too. But he sets up the, you know, once a month he would set up a swim where it's 1K out, 1K back down to this depth stick or whatever. And you would just do that, and he would have kayakers. So you would have somewhere protected to where you know you wouldn't get run over by a bass boat or something.
Yep, yep.
It's really,
That's
plus I mean, if you do it alone, nobody knows where the fuck you are. It's not like I have a, you know, homing beacon on me. They know I went to the lake. I'll just turn up a week later in some other part of it if somebody hits me. So
yeah, yeah. So what kind of you do iron distance racing?
yeah, I do it. I prefer the half, which is 1.2 mile swim, because it's just
Yeah, yeah.
you know, even though I came into triathlons as a swimmer, I really hate swimming for a really long time.
Hmm. Yeah,
It's
the channel's not for you then.
well, I could probably do it. It's just something like I remember when I did I also wasn't really trained to do a 4.5 mile swim. I wasn't putting in the kind of yards or like
Mhm.
distance time to actually swim that far. And it was like, okay, I'll do this. It's probably not that bad. I can do this. It hurt. I
Yeah,
did it, but I wasn't adequately prepared to race it properly.
yeah, yeah.
And again, I
Understood.
didn't have any plan or anything to do that. I was just a swimmer going into it, and I was doing the same thing I was doing for triathlon training.
Yep, yep. So you come from a swim background yourself?
Yeah,
Okay.
I did.
Yeah, fabulous.
I was a U.S. Masters swim coach for like 4 years when I went through graduate school at Georgia Tech.
Oh,
Uh,
good.
they were looking for a coach. I'm like, all right, I'll do it. You know, it paid pretty well. With, you know, you only had to work 1 day a week. It's like, okay, I'll do it.
That's
So,
it's good and it's quite unique. You know, so many triathletes. I'd say 70% of my clients are triathlon, and the majority of them don't come from any sort of swim background. It's the one discipline that causes them probably the most issues, because it's an outlier, right? It's more technical, I would say, than the other disciplines if you've not got any sort of swim background.
yeah, it's the hardest to learn, but it's also the main reason why being in Atlanta, the two closest Ironman and half Ironman races are in Chattanooga and Augusta, which are both on really fast downriver swims. And
Nice.
they sell out super quick because of that reason.
Yeah, yeah, I bet.
People
Yeah.
want that current.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Well, man, thank you for talking with me. I appreciate it. It's been helpful.
It's an absolute pleasure. Hopefully, if you're ever over in this part of the world, mate, then pop in, have a swim at mine.
You know, I'd love to, but I don't think they're letting me leave the country still. You know, our
Yeah.
idiot kind of prevented that.
What's going on with you guys at the moment in terms of COVID? Is it all different depending on state?
How much do you know about our political system?
Enough. I guess enough. My mother's American. I spent a lot of time there. So I understand it in its kind of in that naive sense of someone that doesn't live there.
Well, the party that's in charge, that's running the White House now, the states that have those Republican governors
Yeah.
are actually much worse off now because they're kind of ignorant to science and data, and they kind of suppress. They're cooking the books. They don't want you to know the real data because they don't want to look any worse than they are. It's like, well,
Yep.
it's already bad. Just tell us the truth. But they've been caught numerous times. Like there's been whistleblowers that have came out saying, yeah, they've asked me to change the data, or they're circumventing the CDC or stuff like that. It is probably a lot worse than we realize,
Mm-hmm.
but they're finding ways to put it under the rug so we don't find out. It comes out eventually, but it's not going to get any better until there's an administration change. That's why I didn't anticipate racing in December, because Florida is a Republican state, and their governor is a huge idiot. And with the schools all going back, they're like petri dishes. And then they get home and they spread it to the parents and stuff like that, and it's just.
Yeah, funnily enough, that's exactly what's just happened in the UK. So I've got 2 little girls, both of whom went back to school a few days ago. And if you look at the news for the UK right now, then we're seeing huge spikes in certainly numbers of positive tests, which, you know, we're all bracing ourselves, hoping there's not another lockdown. I certainly couldn't cope with another lockdown from my business point of view. No way.
Well, people view masks. Some people here happens to deal with the party that's in charge. But they view masks as an infringement on their personal rights and freedoms.
Yeah, right.
For safety, you know.
Do they view seatbelts in cars as being an infringement on their civil liberties as well, or just masks?
I mean, it's.
We get the same. We got the same thing. Exactly the same thing. I was listening to the radio a few weeks ago. People were phoning up complaining that they shouldn't be made to wear masks. I mean, it's, for me, I don't tolerate stupidity that well, so I don't get it, you know. But
there's an extreme amount of stupidity going on due to the upcoming election, whereas Trump is basically he's dog whistling everybody, saying, you know, this is how bad Biden's America can be. I'm sorry, man. You're the one running the country right now. This is your America. He's not in charge right now. You are. But that's not the angle they're approaching, and it's dividing us, and everything has become an issue. And now they have crappy doctors pushing herd immunity, which is not going to work because there's no vaccine.
Yeah.
So
agreed.
Until you get people here who actually will listen to qualified experts and use an actual plan, you know, something that you write down on paper and follow. Until that happens, we're fucked.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, hopefully, fingers crossed, the whole sort of world, ourselves, get through this, and we can get back to some sort of normal, smiling again, doing the things we love doing, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the isolation has probably been the hardest part, you know. I separated and moved out of my fiance's house about a month before shit hit the fan. All of a sudden, you know, I went from living with someone for a very long time, to being alone, seeing none of my friends, with 2 cats in the house. And it started to feel a lot like The Shining. It's like, Jesus Christ, I don't have anybody to talk to.
It is so hard. I completely get that. Since I reopened, I've seen obviously a lot of people and athletes, and I've seen everyone from people saying that their life really wasn't any different, to people breaking down in tears because they hadn't seen their family or their kids, or, you know, so many people have been affected mentally by that sense of isolation that lockdown brought. I totally get it. They keep using this word unprecedented. I think it's an overused word, but certainly an accurate one in this sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, we had a response plan for this. Trump threw it out. It was actually, you know, a plan to make sure it didn't get as bad as it currently is. And just because it was the other guy's plan, he threw it out. You're like, you don't have a better plan to replace it with. You just threw out the only plan we had.
Yeah.
It's kind of how it's been with kind of every topic. You don't have a plan for any of it.
No, well, like I say, I think all we can do is hope that somehow. Well, I don't think Trump is the sort to learn from his mistakes, unfortunately. But we can hope.
Oh, you mean he's got to learn first?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, well, thanks, Stu. I appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. It's really nice to meet you.
Thanks, guys, for watching another Sunday morning conversation. If you liked what you saw, please do like and subscribe. And if you want to see more of them, click the little bell notification and it'll tell you whenever I post another one. Thanks again, guys.